What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens episode review. Today, guys, we are going to be going over episode 63 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens. I'm excited, as always, to get into these episode discussions with you guys, and we got a pretty interesting episode in our hands today. So, without further ado, let's not waste any more time, and let's jump right into it. So generally speaking, what were my thoughts on episode 63 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens? Well, I thought this episode was interesting, to say the least. I thought it was a good episode, but there was some pretty interesting things that happened in this episode, from the stuff with Luke to the duel that we got in this episode, which was Luke versus Roa, which I was surprised that a lot of people didn't see this duel coming. I remember looking on Twitter a couple of days ago and seeing a lot of people surprised that it was Luke versus Roa. That was the duel that I thought was going to happen, because we saw Luke with his dual disc on there, but I guess they didn't fully show that it was confirmed to be Luke versus Roa. I guess it was pretty vague. I just kind of went off the hunch because of the fact that Luke was wearing his dual disc and Roa was wearing his dual disc, and if two characters are wearing their dual disc, more than likely they're going to be dueling against each other. So maybe that was just me having a lucky guess that it was going to be Luke versus Roa, but that was a pretty interesting thing to kind of note from this episode as well. And then the stuff with Mimi and Swirly at the end of the episode, which is also going to be a very interesting talking point later on into the review. But let's start off at the beginning of this episode, where we have a very interesting scene where we have Yuga, Gagato, and Roman back at Yuga's lab after the duel between Luke and Yugioh. And speaking of which, Luke, at the very beginning of this episode, was not with the group, which was very interesting, but it wasn't really much to worry about, because assumingly he ended up staying behind because of the fact that he wanted to try and find the fusion card that he ended up using against Yugioh, as after that duel, when he ended up collapsing, when he actually awoke, not only did he not remember that he had a duel against Yugioh, but we also see him unable to find the fusion card that he ended up using against Yugioh. So his thought process was that maybe when he ended up passing out, he ended up dropping his fusion card. So assumingly he decided to stay back to try and find the fusion card that he used against Yugioh. So right off the bat, it's very interesting that the fact that Luke actually stays behind at the place that he dueled Yugioh in, and Yuga and the crew decide to head back to Goa City and to go to Yuga's laboratory. And speaking of which, once they got to Yuga's laboratory, we see that Proprietress, assumingly out of nowhere, just comes and crashes in front of Yuga, Gagato, and Roman, and she seems, or I'm assuming it's a she because of what her design looks like, she seems to be very not in well condition, which it makes sense because of the fact that she ended up getting possessed by President Drone, or Doll, whatever you want to call him. So essentially, after begging Yuga to fix her, Yuga decides to take her into the laboratory and ends up fixing her up. She's now good as new, and then this is where the interesting stuff comes to play. So we go into the scene where we see Luke trying to find the fusion card, and Yugioh and Doll end up confronting Luke. And at first, we see Luke make a little jab to Yugioh after the fact that, Luke ended up beating Yugioh in a duel, and, you see Doll kind of getting a little bit angry about it, but Yugioh doesn't have any problem with it. We then see Yugioh tell Luke that he is the 6th Goha president. And what's very fascinating, and in my opinion is very dumb, instead of asking questions of, what do you mean I'm the 6th Goha president? What are you even talking about? Luke just decides to agree with him, and that whatever Yugioh's telling him is the truth. Which, let me start off by saying this. I will say that although I am tired of Luke winning duels all the time, and throughout the last couple of episodes, I've really started to get kind of tired of Luke, but this episode, in my opinion, made Rook one of my least favorite characters, because he is so freaking dumb. Like, how can this character be this stupid to not even consider asking any questions of what the hell Yuo's even talking about? Instead, he just goes and believes what he says and says, yeah, I am the sixth Goa president, apparently. Like, what the hell? That makes no sense, especially since you know that you have another family. Like, we see you talking in episode 2 about, I can't remember if it was your butler or your father, grandfather, whoever the hell it is. We even see a picture with you and that person in front of his mansion, and we know that you have a sister, and yet you still believe what Yuo's talking about? Now, he doesn't say he's a Goha sibling, he just says he's a president, but that still doesn't even make any sense, because when the hell would Luke have ever been a Goha president? Like, I'm sorry, but I do not understand how in the fresh hell can Luke be this goddamn stupid. I just do not understand it. Like, oh boy, like watching this episode, when I saw that for the first time, well, when I watched it unsubbed, I was very surprised because right off the bat, I was like, yep, Luke is the sixth Goha president. Because like I mentioned in my summary preview analysis, if one of the main group of characters is gone, whether it be Yuga or Luke, I didn't count Mimi, Swirly, or Roa in this case because of the fact that we know that they were going to be going to the Goha president office. If one of those two characters were gone, that would confirm that they're the sixth Goha president, the sixth Goha sibling. And when watching the episode unsubbed, it makes it seem that way. However, once we finally got dialogue for this episode, it just seems like Luke isn't actually the sixth Goha sibling, but just like a fill-in president in a sort. And this is a smart move on Yuo. Not only did you already see that Luke was a very strong duelist because of the fact that he even beats you with his own fusion, but also this is one of the strongest members of Yuga's group. So what he decides to do is go to Luke and say, yeah, you're the sixth Goha president. That way he can get the strongest member of Yuga's group to his side, and now Yuga's team is in deep trouble because they still have to deal with fusions. I mean, Luke was literally the only chance that they had to be able to deal with Yuo's fusion, since they had their own fusion thanks to Luke. However, since Luke is now on Yuo's side, not only did they lose their chance of fusion, but now they have to deal with not only their friend of the group, but their strongest member of the group. I mean, Luke has not lost a single duel in this show so far, so not only do they have to deal with the concept that Luke is the strongest duelist in the Sevens universe, and now they have to try to find a way to beat him, but also, they have to still find a way to deal with fusion, because both of them have access to fusion while Yuga's team doesn't. And yes, although they do have access to maximum monsters, that doesn't matter because Yuo beat Yuga's maximum monster in their duel. And also, put that in mind as well, Yuga has faced Luke and Yuo, and guess what? He lost every single one of the duels that he participated with against these two. He lost against Luke twice, and he lost against Yuo once. So, with that in mind, Yuga's team is in a very big disadvantage from what it seems like, which is very fascinating to me. And also, one of my favorite lines from this episode actually came with Roman, and it was just a short line. It wasn't really that big, but it was such a slap in the face to Luke because of what happened earlier in the show that I just absolutely loved it. And what Roman said in this episode was simply, Luke is a traitor. Now, why is that important? Well, Luke had such a problem with Roman in the first arc because essentially she was a traitor of Yuga's group as well because she was working with Roa and her band members. And Luke, for the entire first arc and even the second arc, was giving Roman so much crap for betraying Yuga's group to the point where she made curry for the guy. She made curry for him. She spent the entire day trying to find a way to apologize to him. And guess what? Now we're into this arc, and now Luke has done the exact same thing that Roman did in the first arc, and I love the turnaround that it ended up doing, because you add the whole concept of Luke calling Roman a traitor. Now you have Roman calling Luke a traitor, which I absolutely love the fact that she said that during this episode, and only Roman was the one to say in this episode, which I feel like she should have been the one to say it. I mean, Luke kept calling her a traitor. In fact, Yuga and Gakuto understood why Roman did what she had to do, but Luke didn't care. He just saw her as a traitor, and now Roman just sees Luke as a traitor, which, again, I absolutely love the fact that they actually did something like that. I really did like that, but now that we have that aspect in mind, because they also found this out because essentially Luke broadcasted that he was the sixth Goha sibling when he confronted Roa, Mimi, and Swirly, which, let's get into that scene because I'm kind of jumping all over the place because, again, a lot happened in this episode. So, obviously, we had the dynamic of Roa, Mimi, and Swirly, which that whole concept of that group was weird because it seemed like Mimi was trying to keep distance away with Roa because of the fan group that she was with, and apparently a rule in their group was that if you ever encounter Roa, you have to be a certain amount of feet away from him, which is really weird. I don't know why she couldn't really be up to Roa. I honestly really don't understand that, but that's not really the point. Essentially, Roa confronts Mimi and Swirly and says to Mimi that, didn't you think it was weird of how Luke was acting during that duel against Yugioh? And Mimi thought it was pretty interesting because also in the last episode, she mentioned that the mask that Luke was wearing was something that she had seen before, but she couldn't really remember what it was. So they ended up having the idea of going to the Goha Corporation building to see if maybe they can find any clues to that mask, because in this episode she does find out or remembers that that mask looks very similar to a mask that she saw in that president's office. So essentially, Roa, Mimi, and Swirly end up sneaking into the building. You know, you have Mimi in her President Goha outfit, and then you have Roa and Swirly in that Sevens outfit. I can't remember what they ended up calling that. It was a concept that was during the whole tournament arc. There had like a little mascot for the Sevens symbol. I can't remember the name of it, but they end up dressing up in that suit, and they are able to infiltrate the building, almost getting caught in the process, but they are able to get away, and this is when they confront Yugioh and Luke, and then this is where we get into the whole duel between Luke and Roa, as essentially Roa didn't even want to duel against Luke. He just wanted to be there to try to find the mask and see if the hypothesis was true, but Luke essentially says, oh wow, you're just basically a chicken. You don't want to duel against me because you know I'm a very strong duelist, which is a very interesting concept to kind of think about as well, because throughout the episode, they really bring home the point that Luke is the strongest duelist in Sevens right now. I mean, they have paid attention to the fact that he has been undefeated since the beginning of the show, which indicates to me that some point in the near future, Luke is going to get his first loss, which I absolutely love because this has been something that I've wanted to see for a while now. I think Luke is overdue for a loss, and although I'm a person that would rather see an antagonist beat Luke, since that would make the antagonist an immediate threat because of the fact that, you know, that antagonist beat the strongest duelist in Seven so far, and it makes him an immediate threat. But I guess since he's now a villain, it's something that they really don't have the option anymore to do. So I guess now the next best option is to have one of the members of Yuga's team to beat Luke, and this is where we get into the duel, and Roa, to buy time, decides that he's going to participate in this duel, which I was very hyped right off the beginning when we found out it was going to be Luke versus Roa was going to be the duel this episode, because this is probably one of, if not the most requested duel that I wanted to see in Sevens out of any possible duel in the show so far. I know they ended up dueling in the manga in chapter 5, which, by the way, for anyone that asks, I will be doing a chapter review for chapters 4 and 5 of the Yugioh Sevens manga, as well as chapter 16 of the OCG Structures manga. I haven't got to it yet, but I promise you those 3 reviews will come out at some point in the near future. So be on the look for that, because I'm very excited to see that duel between Luke and Roa in the manga. I want to see what their whole take was in the manga. But getting into the duel that we got in the anime, my thoughts on this duel, I thought it was good. I thought this duel was a good duel for what it was. Not what I was expecting for a Luke versus Roa duel, but honestly, you wouldn't really be able to predict the stuff that was going to happen throughout this episode that kind of led to blending in with the duel, from the stuff that Roa said to even the stuff that was going on with Luke as well. It just was not something that you can predict in a Luke versus Roa duel, and I wish that this duel was a 2-episode duel. I knew it wasn't going to be in this arc in particular because of the fact that we just don't have the time for it, but when I imagined a Luke versus Roa duel happening, I was really hoping that it would be a 2-episode duel. That way they can just go full out and just bring out all of their aces, all their dragons, all their fiend monsters, and just a big clash between these two. I thought it would be so cool to see that, but again, because of the stuff that's going on in the time that we have for this arc, it was just not going to happen, and this is why I'm hoping we get a Luke Roa rematch. I would absolutely love it if we got a rematch between these two, and it did extend to a 2-episode length duel. I think it would be so great to see it, and to see these two characters going all out against each other would just be insane. But for the duel that we got, I thought it was still good. Early on in the duel, Luke was actually trying to go into his fusion plays. We even see him at one point have the 2 materials he needs. He has his Dragears on the field, and he has, I believe it's called the Star Dragon, or, well, no, it's the dragon, excuse me. I think the Star Dragon was the AC used against Yugioh, but if I'm wrong, feel free to roast me in the comments. I will fully accept it. I'm just bad when remembering Rush Duel cards, but either way, he gets the 2 materials that he needs on his field to be able to go into his fusion plays, and even activates Pot of Greed during the duel. My general thoughts on the duel, I thought the duel was good, though I will say this, compared to Roa's last duel of this arc, which was against Yuka, I honestly will say the Roa Yuka duel, in my opinion, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but I think that duel was honestly better than this one. Now, again, not because this duel was bad or anything, but I think, and this is more my fault than anything, I kind of overhyped this duel for me, in my opinion, because when it came to this duel, I really was hoping when these two would clash between each other that they would go all out, and not saying they didn't. I mean, at one point, Luke had Dragears, Miragias, and Metal Geass all onto the field, and Roa had all 3 of his aces on Death, Doom, Heavy Metal, Invasion at one point in the duel, was all on his field, and they had a clash between the 2 monsters, but I was kind of hoping there was a little bit more substance. But the reason why I think that there wasn't enough was because I was kind of hoping that when we got this duel between Luke and Roa, and this was way before this duel was even announced, this was all the way back in the 3rd arc when we had the idea that there are potentials for Rush Duels the last 2 episodes, because we didn't know at the very beginning of the show if there was going to be a chance for Rush Duels to extend to 2 episodes, since Rush Duels go by very quickly. But after that Yuga and Neil duel, and them setting a presence that Rush Duels can last more than 1 episode, this was a duel that I was kind of hoping would be one of those cases of them doing a 2-episode duel. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case, so I think with that aspect in mind, I did kind of overhype myself when it came to this duel, but I still thought the duel was good. I mean, again, they were able to get 3 of their strongest monsters into the field at one point closer to the end of the duel. We see Luke at the beginning of this duel actually try to go for his fusion. We even see him get the materials on the field. You know, he gets Dragears on the field, he gets the Star Dragon, or the Dragon, or wherever in the world you want to call call it. Well, actually, I think there is a Star Dragon monster already in the game because I remember that announcement. It's his level 8 monster, I think it was. I can't really remember the monster specifically because not only did I see it in one duel, but I saw it for a short glimpse of it in the little Yugioh organization post that we got about that card, but I think there was a Star Dragon. But getting back on the topic, he gets that dragon on the field, whatever the way you want to call it. I don't think you say the star symbol on there. I think it's just called the dragon. So he's able to get those two monsters onto the field and tries to get to the fusion card, even using Pot of Greed to try to dig through his deck to get him, but unfortunately he wasn't able to do it. He ends up sacrificing the Star Dragon or the dragon or whatever you want to call it. He sacrifices it to get another tribute summon monster onto his field, and even activates Mountain during the duel, which was actually pretty cool to see, and was able to go on an assault with the two monsters that he did have and try to deal some damage to Roa. And even Roa was able to fire back and even almost OTK'd him at the same time because he was able to get Heavy Metal onto the field. He got Death Doom on the field as well and was able to get rid of one of Luke's monsters and was able to just go on a full frontal assault on Luke and just essentially OTK him, and also took a very big jab at Luke as well during this episode as well, calling him a pathetic duelist, a shell of himself. You know, at the beginning of this duel, he was searching for fusion, and he even kind of took that to some points that he mentioned during the duel, is that now he's trying to rely on fusion now, when originally he didn't used to do that. Although, Roa, I will say this, I do agree with the points you were making. You do have to also remember that during the duel as well, even when he wasn't able to get his fusion card to his hand, because when it comes to the fusion card, he might not have it, which we'll get into in a little bit, but he still was able to make a very good play. He still had Dragears on his field. He was able to sacrifice the dragon to get another tribute summon monster onto the field, and was able to get the mountain field spell to activate anyways. So in a sense, he was still able to build a pretty big board, typically what you would see Luke normally do in an old-fashioned duel before he even relied on fusion. So although I do think you made some good points, there was one point in particular that you mentioned that I guess you can counter-argue to, but I still think the moment that we got with Roa was pretty good, and that was probably my favorite moment out of the entire duel, was just Roa just tearing up Luke in this episode, and I absolutely loved it. And we even see Luke kind of in his head a little bit, you know, he's kind of thinking like, what am I doing is right? Am I doing the right thing and everything? And has the dual gods just basically abandoned me? And we see him walking through this like sandstorm and everything, and even falls to the ground. And he was going to accept the loss here, but unfortunately that didn't end up being the case, as he ends up looking up and sees this big old slot machine in front of him, which was a trap card that he actually set in the prior turn before Roa went on his full frontal assault, which was actually the same trap he used against Yugioh in the tournament finals. Uses the effect of that slot machine card and was able to get 3 level 7 dragons thanks to that card's effect, and was able to gain an absurd amount of attack or life points, excuse me, to the point where he was going to originally take 4,100 points of damage and lose the duel right there and then, but survived with 500 life points. And I think he also took damage prior to the duel as well because of Death Doom's effect. So he literally survived by the skin of his teeth. And I remember correctly too, when it came to that trap card as well, even, and I could be wrong in this, even if he only got 2 level 7 monsters, which from what I was told about this card, because I actually did ask some people about this card, you still gain life points from what I was told, even if you get 2 level 7 monsters, but you gain an additional life point boost if you're able to get 3 level 7 dragons on the slot machine. So even if Luke just got the 2 level 7 dragons, I believe if I did the math right, he still would have lost the duel. So the fact that he was able to get 3 level 7s, which is very possible in Luke's deck since he does play a whole bunch of level 7 dragon monsters. I still thought it was very insane that he was able to pull that off, but he was able to survive the duel or that turn and then was able to go on his full assault with his 3 Yugioh monsters and was able to defeat Roa in the duel, which I was not surprised at all. I did not think Roa was going to win this duel. I feel like it just didn't make sense for Luke to just become a president to just then immediately lose it thanks to Roa. And plus, Roa's whole goal during that entire duel was to distract Luke and Yugioh from Mimi and Swirly, who escaped during the duel, and we even see that scene happen, to try to go into the president's office to try to find if their hypothesis was true or not. So, Roa did accomplish what he went there to do. He was a distraction to kind of stop Luke and Yugioh from noticing what they were trying to do, and they were still able to get what they wanted. So, that's when we get into the scene with Mimi and Swirly. They end up going into the president's office, and this is a scene that was very weird to me, and it's caused a lot of theories and debates over the last couple of days. Swirly starts hitting the keypad that was on the desk, and Mimi tells him to stop doing it, to not mess with any buttons because she doesn't want to get caught, but Swirly kept tapping on the buttons, and the floor beneath them just went downwards. Swirly knew that code to that keypad to let them go underground to see the mask, which they did confirm that one of the masks that Luke was using was one of the masks that was underneath the ground. So they did confirm that, which it was more than likely going to be that anyways. I feel like for a story purpose, that's the reason why they did it, because I feel like a lot of us in the community already knew that this was going to be the case, but I guess for the character's perspective, they had to kind of confirm it in the universe, because they're not going to just say, oh, well, that's the case, because they don't honestly know. So it was still a good thing to show it, but the main thing to look at, and even was brought to attention in this episode as well, well, two things were brought up. One, when it comes to this mask, it seems like, and this was a comment that Roa made after the group kind of rejoins with each other, Roa says that maybe it's a case where Luke cannot use fusion without being the Luke man, and that is very interesting, and it makes sense. After all, he gained the fusion card when he was the Luke man, so in a sense, if he's not the Luke man, he has no access to fusion, which I guess does benefit Yugioh and the group. That means that as long as Luke is not the Luke man, they don't have to worry about Luke's fusion. However, they still have to deal with Luke regardless, so although it is a benefit to them, it's not really a benefit, because even their maximums can't stop Luke. I mean, Luke was able to defeat Yugioh's maximum during the finals of the tournament, so that obviously doesn't matter. So they're still gonna have an uphill battle regardless, but maybe this has some indication, because Luke doesn't know this. Luke doesn't know that he has to be the Luke man in order to use fusion, so maybe they can use that to their benefit to potentially beat Luke. Who really knows? That's a thing that we really have to think about going further down the show as Luke being a president. But the other thing to mention is that Mimi realizes that Swirly knew the code to that little keypad. How in the hell did Swirly know that keypad? Well, there's two options here. Either A, he got it from the book, which actually earlier in the episode he was reading the book, so there is a good possibility that he actually got the code from the book, or Swirly just knew the code because he worked for Goha Corporation. Now, although I think this is a good chance that he be a Goha employee, we haven't really focused on any other Goha employees except for one set of employees in particular, and that was the Goha presidents. And when you think about it, we're still missing one president. And this is where the big theory is going around, and I think where most people are leaning towards now, is that Swirly is going to be this sixth Goha president, which I guess it does make sense when you really think about it, because not only from this scene in general, but having a couple of days to think about it, I did kind of remember something back when we first got the little biographs for the Goha siblings and Swirly. One of the lines that was mentioned in Swirly's bio was that make sure to keep an eye on this character. So, with that in mind, I think because of that line that was said in the little bio that we got, and now the stuff that happened in this episode, I think it's probably a 98% chance that Swirly is the 6th Go-Op president, with the other 2% being he got it from the book, which I guess can make sense from a story perspective. That means Otis basically created Goha Corporation because he got the inspiration from that book, so I guess you can tie some stuff with Otis in there as well, but I just think from the aspect of the stuff that's been going on right now, it really makes no sense for the book to be the reason. It could be a case, and it could actually have something very interesting going forward as well, but I just personally do not see it. I really do believe, based off of the information that we know about Swirly, and also the fact we have, like, no history behind him, we don't know his backstory or anything, and also, in something that I feel so dumb for not thinking about, we don't know Swirly's name. Swirly has just been called by Swirly this entire time, but we don't actually know his name, so with all those thoughts in mind, Swirly could easily be the 6th Goha president, and it could make sense. So that is very interesting to think about going forward, but we're gonna have to wait a little bit to see if we can get a little bit more information. But for right now, and I cannot believe I'm saying this because I made a big argument towards this during my summary preview analysis video, but for right now, if I had to make a prediction, I think Swirly is going to be the 6th Goha president, in my opinion. Would it be a little bit predictable? I guess because of the fact that Swirly was the only other new character that was introduced into the show, but unless it was like a Yuga and Luke shock factor, I really just didn't know who else could be, because although I did make an argument for a new character, I just now taking a little bit more time to think about it as well. Maybe we just don't have enough time for a new character, but since we already have established of a brand new character that came in this arc, it makes the most amount of sense, or at least it does in my opinion. So, with that in mind, I am going to be sticking to the case that Swirly is the 6th Goha president. But with that being said, that's going to be it for this episode review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your guys' thoughts on episode 63 of Yugioh Sevens. Did you like the episode? Did you think the episode was okay? Or did you not really like the episode at all? And let me know your guys' thoughts on the duel between Luke and Roa, and if you liked the duel or not, and did it live up to the hype that you guys were expecting? Or do you think that this duel could have been better? And your guys' thoughts on the whole situation with Swirly, and do you guys believe that Swirly is going to be the 6th Goha president? I would love to know all your guys' thoughts on this down below, and even the stuff with Luke as well. I would love to know your guys' thoughts on that as well. But with that being said, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, guys, take care and have yourselves a great rest of your day.